feels like
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the January 28th meeting of the Gulf Shores Planning Commission. I'd like to call to order. Mel?
Pete Peck,
Here.
Frank Malone,
here.
Phil Harris,
Here.
Alan Young,
Here. Here.
Richard Lamar,
Here.
Brent
Here.
Okay, got a quorum for sure. Thank you, ma'am. Chair will entertain a motion on approval of the minutes of the December 17th meeting.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
Abstain, please. How was that?
One abstain. Phil Harris abstained. Okay. Our first public hearing today, we'll move right into that. Moving right along. MediaCom Building Addition. Mr. Andy, your call.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the Planning Commission. First item is ZA 2464. It is a building addition to the existing MediaCom building located at 2320 East 2nd Street. The proposed addition is 973 square feet. And because the applicant seeks modifications from the Waterway Village Overlay District standards, a CUP is also required. As you guys will remember, in Article 10 of the overlay districts, if someone seeks modifications from the underlying zoning or overlay district zoning, they must apply for it and obtain a CUP from the Planning Commission and City Council. We did notice this application in accordance with Article 3-7 of the zoning ordinance. We have not received any correspondence from that notice. Location maps, I think everyone knows where the MediaCom building is. It's on the southeast quadrant of the city on East 2nd Street. The specific location is 2320 East 2nd Street. The property zone general business is predominantly surrounded to the north, south, and east by property owned by Our Lady of the Gulf Catholic Church. Across the street to the west is also Zone BG and is a location of the Gulf Shores Equipment Rentals. Here are a few of the photographs showing the existing conditions of the property. The large photograph is taken from the front looking to the east. The top right photograph is looking towards the north at the side of the building. And the bottom photograph is looking from the rear, looking to the west. Again, the property is currently zoned general business. All of you know that general business is a commercial zoning district, provides locations for a range of retail establishments, commercial offices, hotels, motels, and other type of business uses. The property is also within the Waterway Village Overlay District. The Waterway Village Overlay District was adopted in 2012. The purpose of the Waterway Village Overlay District is to encourage this area of the city to develop into a mixed-use commercial neighborhood downtown district and to create a secondary tourist destination as opposed to the beachfront, which will geographically diversify the city's economy. Most of you probably remember also that the Waterway Village Overlay District is made up of sub-districts. In this instance, the subject property is part of the T5 sub-district. The T5 sub-district is to preserve and enhance the existing character of locally serving retail and commercial uses along East 2nd Street. Building form should be varied to represent the mixed commercial use of the area. And then shared on-street parking, thoroughfare landscape plantings should be provided to reinforce the pedestrian activity in the neighborhood. So the land use specifically designates this parcel commercial mixed use. Mixed use is encouraged by the land use plan. Mixed use may be vertical, all on one property, or horizontal spread about on separate properties. In this district, a lot of the mixed use will be more horizontally, or currently it is more horizontally because you've got separate uses, separate types of commercial and business, and some probably multifamily uses spread about within the district. The proposed site plan, you see the existing building outline there. The proposed addition is located to the rear and south of the building. It's highlighted in, I believe that's yellow. So the zoning requirements, office use is allowed by right. They have 48% of the site is landscaped as opposed to the minimum 20% required. 6 parking spaces are provided. A 4-space bike rack is provided at the entrance of the building. They comply with the maximum building height regulations, comply with the building coverage regulations, impervious surface coverage regulations. It's quite a bit less than the maximum 80% allowed by the district. Setbacks in the Waterway Village Overlay District, there are very shallow setbacks. It's kind of encouraging buildings to be pushed up close to the road and the development of the majority of the property with a building. That primarily was written for new development. So there are a couple of instances here where this existing building and in addition do not comply with the Waterway Village setback requirements. So the front setbacks required are 0 feet minimum, 5 feet maximum. The existing building is set back 24 feet off the property line. The rear setback is a 5-foot minimum. The rear setback, proposed rear setback is 48 feet. The interior side yard setbacks are 0 feet minimum and 0 feet maximum. The north side yard setback is 0 feet, and then the south side yard setback is 4 feet. So that 4 feet does not comply with the Waterway Village Overlay District standards. So here's the building elevations and floor plan. On the right-hand side of the floor plan, you can see the existing building there. About half of the building is used for servers. The other half is a lobby and a break room. The new addition will consist of 4 office spaces. Well, technically 5 office spaces, 4 small office spaces, and 1 large office. The existing building is masonry. The proposed addition will be hardy board and batten siding. And you see the front, rear, right, and left side elevations. So access and parking. Majority of the area, or all the area across the width of the property is currently asphalted within the right-of-way at East 2nd Street. I think that right-of-way is like 130 feet wide, so there is a significant portion of the beyond the street that people have kind of traditionally been used as driveways and parking. So the proposal is to continue to utilize that area for parking. As many of you know, also within the Waterway Village Overlay District, there's a thoroughfare assemblies plan, which designates each street and how it should be kind of brought up to standards. In this instance, this portion of East 2nd Street would be required to have angled parking, a landscape planner, and a 9-foot wide sidewalk. Instead, the applicant is asked to pay a fee in lieu instead of installing those requirements. The city engineer has reviewed their engineer's estimate in the amount of $38,885 and approved that engineer's estimate. So staff is recommending to accept a fee in lieu of installing those requirements. Another thing in terms of parking, there's a 50% reduction for required parking in the Waterway Village Overlay District for office uses. So typically the minimum required parking spaces would be 12. but in this case, it is 50% of 12, which equals 6 parking spaces. They do provide 6 on-street parking spaces within East Second Street public right-of-way. And again, they have provided the 4-space bicycle rack near the entrance of the building. Landscaping and tree protection. All of the existing protected trees on the site will be saved. Those are basically around the north and east perimeter of the site. Those protected trees include 2 12-inch live oak trees. And the applicant has earned 13 tree credits by preserving the trees. The Waterway Village Overlay District also does not require our standard the standard landscape standards are not required in the Waterway Village Overlay District. The only landscaping that's required are the parking lot landscape standards. In this instance, because the T5 district calls for thoroughfare plantings, we did think it was appropriate for the applicant to provide plantings between the entrance of the building and the East Second Street right-of-way. So they have provided the standard one tree every 20 feet, every 25 feet, and 6 shrubs every 20 feet. Just try to break up that area between the public right-of-way and the entrance to the building. It'll also make it a lot more aesthetically pleasing for people who are going to this site. So the landscape plans also show a small area between the new addition and the south property line that will be planted with shrubs and 1 crepe myrtle. And the landscape plans also indicate that all disturbed areas will be sodded. So those landscape plans do comply with the minimum requirements of the landscape ordinance. Site improvements, grading and drainage. The grading and drainage plan has been reviewed and approved by the city engineer. Exterior lighting. If any site lighting is proposed, the lighting plan shall be submitted in accordance with Article 6 of the zoning ordinance. Again, typically the site lighting is located within a parking lot. And since there is no parking lot on the property, it's likely that there is no site lighting going to be provided. Trash collection, the applicant will use rollout trash containers. They did provide a letter from Republic Services indicating the site can be serviced with rollout trash containers. And the trash containers will be located to the rear of the building, and screening has been provided for that area. Department and agency reviews. The fire marshal and engineering department have reviewed and approved the site plan. Now we'll get into the conditional use permit requirements. So Article 10-2B, deviations, indicates modifications in strict compliance with underlying zoning and overlay zoning district standards may be allowed if such modifications are found to comply with the goals and intent of the future land use plan. Applications requesting modifications from the zoning standards shall follow the conditional use permit process. So the applicant seeks a modification from Article 13-5, alteration of non-conforming structures to allow the construction of an addition and the continued use of the existing building and premises. This is much like a couple of the other site plans that you guys have reviewed in the Waterway Village Overlay District, the Frith Building and Galway Public House, because both those site plans utilize the existing buildings. They also had to obtain a modification to Article 13-5. So Article 13-5 specifically states no alteration to or enlargement of a non-conforming structure shall be allowed unless such modification conforms to the area and dimensional standards for the applicable district. In this instance, the project does comply with all zoning requirements except for the front setback and the interior side yard setback. Again, there are very small setbacks required in the Waterway Village Overlay District. And the existing building is set back 24 feet from the front setback. And then that new addition is 4 feet off the side property line, and it's supposed to be at 0 feet. So under Under staff's analysis for the conditional use permit and the modification request, this building was constructed in 1961 and is one of the older commercial buildings in Gulf Shores. I believe it's 64 years old. According to the National Historic Registry, in order to qualify as a historical structure, a building must be at least 50 years old, so it potentially could qualify as a historic structure if they wanted to. Also, one of the 5 purposes of the Waterway Village Overlay District is to regulate building form in a manner which preserves and advances the existing architectural character of the area by utilizing a portion of the existing building. It obviously preserves the existing architectural character of the area. For those of you who do not know, this was, I believe, the original post office for the city of Gulf Shores way back when. Also, the building form regulations within Waterway Village were based on the existing architectural of the area. City staff supports the applicant's modification request to utilize the existing building. The staff recommends approval of the site plan CUP with the following conditions. Condition number 1, grant a modification from Article 13-5 to allow the applicant to construct an addition and continue to use the existing building and premises. Number 2, a lighting photometric plan, including typical light pole fixture details, shall be submitted prior to the issuance of a building permit. That is, if they're going to have any exterior lighting. Number 3, we crossed out. Number 3 was an original comment from our first review. There is a portion directly south of the property that's owned by the Our Lady of the Gulf Catholic Church, which contains about 15 parking spaces and an access drive. We were unsure if the applicant was going to use these spaces and access drive for their facility. Since we sent this report out, we have conferred with the applicant's engineer. He states they will not use that property or the ingress, egress, or any easement. They also have meet the required 6 parking spaces within the East 2nd Street right-of-way. And also all disturbed areas will be sodded. So we completely removed this condition. So the final condition is prior to the issue of a building permit, the applicant shall pay a $38,885 fee in lieu of construction for the angled parking, sidewalks, landscape planters in East 2nd Street right-of-way. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Andy, are you okay with the modification on 13.5 on non-conforming structures?
Yes, sir.
Okay with that?
Yes, sir.
And they're not gonna need the parking.
No, sir. They comply with the 6 parking spaces, which will be located in the East 2nd Street right-of-way.
So that'd be enough for people to pull in and go inside and do.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks, that's all I have.
So to clarify, they're not, so the parcel that's directly south of their parcel is the asphalt drive and parking area, and on the Google Earth, it shows MediaCom vans being parked on that piece of property. Are they not going to use parking or use that asphalt drive lot anymore? Is that what you're telling us?
That's what I'm telling you.
So they'll have only 4.4 feet between the building and their property line. How do they intend to use the additional parking in the rear of the building or get their rollout trash cans from the rear of the building to the street? If they're not using that piece of property to drive around the building, there's only 4 feet between the edge of the building and their property line to be able to drive their vehicle.
I guess they could get their rollout trash can out, but
And it looks like there's no access from the from the east to the west.
there's not.
So unless they're
There's
using,
a chain link fence up behind.
unless they're using that,
Yeah, we thought that they would, because some either aerial photos or street photos showed where they had used that in the past. But according to the applicant, they do not need it and they're not going to use it. So that's why we struck the comment. And we did just look at old aerial photographs. earlier today dating from 2023, 2022, 2020, and 2018. It did not look like any of those old aerial photographs that they were using that parking. So if it has been used, it's been maybe only on occasion. So
Also showed no landscaping on the south building face and the new extension in that 4-foot easement or between the property line and the building. We're not going to require any landscaping on that south-facing end of that building.
there is some landscaping shown on the south face of that new. Is that what you're talking about? The new addition?
Yeah, the new L shape that
Yeah.
comes down to the
Yeah, I'll
south.
show you.
I'm sorry, I missed it.
And technically, that's not required. Can you see here, Grant, on,
Okay, so as you're driving north on Second, on the edge of that building, in that 4-foot
yeah, there's
right away, there'll
some
be
shrubs and crepe myrtle. Is that where, do you see that?
Okay,
In the Great Myrtle.
so they've no,
But technically, that's not required.
and so they have no intention of driving to the rear of the building.
My understanding.
Is there lighting on here? I didn't see the lighting.
There is no lighting, no.
That might be something, do we require that?
So what's required is parking lot lighting. But since all their lighting's in the East Second Street right of way, I mean, they can't put lighting in the right of way. So parking lot lighting is typically required for
They won't be
parking
using that.
lots that are on, but I included that as a condition in case, because they didn't submit a lighting plan, they could put some outdoor lighting between, the building and along the sidewalk or something, so, I did include that condition just in case it was an oversight. Because normally we do have outdoor lighting.
Any other questions from the commissioners?
Yeah, just one, the site plan showing 5 parking places required 6, so are they just, the 6 they're paying for, 5 are in front of the building and 1 is somewhere else?
They can
on
fit
east
6 in
side?
front of the building.
Angled? They can?
Yes. They'll just be 90 degree. So the diagram that shows angle parking. So right here, 1, 2, 5, 6. The diagram that shows angle parking,
Yeah,
that is a design showing what is required by the thoroughfare assemblies plan. That's what their engineer's estimate was based off of. This diagram on the screen shows 6 parking spaces, 90 degree, which basically is what they do today, is they just pull straight in. Does that make sense?
so today they pull straight in and they can get 6 across
sir.
the width of their property?
Yes, sir.
When we redo that, street parking and all, will they be angled parking?
Yes, it will be angled. And I think this is similar to Galway. If you'll remember with Galway, their frontage on Second Street, that's still an ALDOT, at the time it was an ALDOT owned and maintained street, and they wouldn't permit the improvement of the angled parking out there. So we counted the spaces that exist today as 90 degree. This is a similar treatment where today they have 60 feet. With a typical 9-foot wide parking space, they can get 6 parking spaces out there today. So as far as this site plan is concerned, they can park 6 cars out there today. But their payment in lieu is based on the 5 spaces that could be constructed at a future date when the city takes that effort on. So technically, they will be short of space once those improvements are made in that Second Street frontage. But as of today, once this happens and they park cars out there, they'll meet the minimum requirements for 6 spaces out front. Now, we could change that and require an addition, knowing that there only will be 5 spaces out there in the future, there'll be 1 space short.
we could require one on-site space as part of this, but we let Galway be the precedent for how we calculated the required spaces under existing conditions rather than future, not knowing when those improvements are going to take place in the spot.
Okay.
Still hung up on the 4-foot setback. And now they're showing landscaping completely filling that 4-foot setback. Still not sure how they're gonna get access to those trash cans to roll them to the curb for Republic to pick up. Without going on somebody else's
Yeah, I
property.
mean, they
I mean, they can do it physically.
they
but they're
probably
gonna
will
be-
have to just,
They're gonna have to go on somebody else's
walk
property to
across
do
someone
that.
else's
I don't know if
property.
that should be what we force upon that property owner on the south side.
They use a dumpster now?
there was no dumpster on the site.
Okay.
There's a dumpster on the Catholic Church property that's directly adjacent to it, but there's no dumpster there.
What would happen if they built the building to the 0 setback on both sides? There'd be no way to even, but
You see, y'all always design something out in front of the building, even though we prefer to be to the rear of the building. No. Because the Catholic Church owns the property to the north, and they own the property directly to the east. There's actually a fence that goes, chain link fence that goes back there that
Is Chris here?
Chris can,
yeah.
Okay. Would you like to address us and let us know? your
Good
thoughts?
evening. I'm Chris Lee with Lee Engineering Company. I brought this before you this evening. A couple things that we could do. We could take the landscaping out of that 4-foot area and just make it sod. Therefore, you can just pull your wheelie cart across the sod and take it out to, the right of way. Or we could move the corral, to the, I guess, the nook of the building and have it screened appropriately per your requirements and stick it there on the, I guess, the west side of the addition, kind of in that north corner of it, and have it there, but still be screened so we don't have to, and still keep the landscaping between the building and the road as well. So we can work out options on that one.
All right, any other questions? Grant?
I think I have to defer
You
to,
satisfied with that?
have to defer to our experts,
Is that a
see if that works.
agreement from the Catholic Church just to,
No, I mean, I think as far as rollout containers, we can work with the applicant to find a solution. Prior building permit or some condition to that effect.
I think the preference would be to not have it street facing.
yeah,
I
that's,
guess
I agree.
Nook is the right place to put
No.
it, but
Mm-mm.
we can work that out. I mean, again, since the landscaping is not required anyway, putting it behind the building and having space to roll out, I think the landscaping would be preferential to having a garbage can visible from Second Street, so. I think we can work
Mhm.
those details.
Okay.
Or in the future, if it became an issue, that could be the solution.
That's what a lot of this is, under the initial review, we thought that the driveway access to the church was going to be their access to parking and that for garbage and service and those sorts of things. But when they achieved their parking out front on Second Street, so they aren't going to use that. We looked at the deeds, there's no easement agreement for access across the church property, and they preferred to leave it that way. When we're looking at landscaping, parking, signage, and things that the zoning ordinance allows us to look at, we felt uncomfortable really getting into a private agreement between two property owners to dictate an access on one property to the benefit of the other when they're already meeting all the zoning requirements. So we're kind of in a sticky spot, trying to sort this out, access and trash and roll out containers and everything, but I think the access for the most part has been resolved. We can leave that condition that we struck throughout and leave it as is. If necessary, an access agreement can be, we can require that they need additional parking. We can leave that in. It was an initial requirement, then we said if required, and then now we've just taken it out altogether because we don't want to dictate their access if they're already meeting all the zoning requirements. But I feel like the rollout containers we can solve with this quite easily and get them in the back of the building and work through the landscaping to go to where we can take it out.
Okay.
Chris, is there lighting towards the front? Is there any exterior?
Honestly, I don't know. I can look real quick on the elevation, see if they have any drawn, but it doesn't look like they do.
I think that would just be something to consider just for safety. We don't have a lot of, I don't think we have any street lighting over there, and the Catholic Church has a little bit, but not.
But I think that condition could be modified to, Andy has a condition that if required, that we could, at building permit, require a building light, a light on building facade or lighting in the modify that.
The only one shown on the electrical plan is over the existing 2 front doors.
All right.
Yeah.
I've got more questions. I'll open up the audience for public comment. Anybody would like to comment? Something. Any comments from the audience? Okay, close the public hearing, and the chair will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the MediaCom site plan. Of course, with staff recommendations, and Lee, did you say leave 3 in, or we're still striking it?
I don't think it does any harm to leave 3 in because we're leaving
I
the
agree.
option open.
Right, it says may. Okay, and add a fifth one that says that the city and the applicant can administratively decide the best way to treat the rollout containers.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Good. You opposed?
Yes.
Okay. One opposed. Motion carried. All right. Land use amendment, Mr. Jones.
Should have. But anyway.
Terrence, can I move this microphone a little bit? All right. Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners. See if I can get us going here. As you all are aware, maybe Richard, I'm not sure if you were here last year, typically the first of the year, we go through a future land use map amendment, which is the future land use map is a component of the land use plan. And throughout the year, we track requests, whether they're site plans or rezonings or annexations, PUDs that come before the commission, and those that are inconsistent with the future land use map. We note those, and sometimes the Planning Commission actually, as part of their recommendation, says you need to modify the future land use map to make it correspond with this recommendation. So we had 4 of those in your staff report. Upon further review, we've removed one, the South Baldwin Christian Academy, which was it was a future land use map amendment to go from commercial mixed use to institutional. After talking through that with Andy, so just the future land use map is a broad brushstroke. You know, it's not parcel specific. So we're not looking at individual lots and saying, okay, this needs to be commercial, this needs to be residential, this needs to be office. So looking at the 59 corridor, I had some concerns about taking institutional. We all want everything on 59 to be commercial mixed use. I think that's pretty, there's a detailed drawing of commercial mixed use development in the land use plan. It's a broad brush land use designation on the future land use map for 59. So having that anomaly of an institutional policy, future land use just for South Baldwin Academy was not in keeping with kind of the way we use the future land use map, which is this broad brush stroke. Now, just to contrast that with the high school, the Auburn facility, you know, prior to my being here, there were some planning efforts done by the Planning Commission and City Council to identify an academic campus. And the Coastal Gateway Boulevard, Foley Beach Express, that was all land that was donated and set aside and acquired for the purpose of higher learning, higher education. So in that sense, having an institutional or educational future land use designation makes a lot of sense. But for one use on one segment of Highway 59, I just didn't feel like it was the best way to use our future land use map. So I pulled that. I apologize for the last minute pull on that. But just to think about it this way, if South Baldwin Academy a year from now decides that they're going to move campuses and they have a buyer that wants to come in and purchase their campus and they want to develop it with commercial mixed use, but they need to change the zoning in order to get there, our first place, as you all know, we go to the future land use map and say, what does it tell us we need to do? Now, all of a sudden, we're looking at institutional. And I think we can all agree that a pocket of institutional in that location is a little too fine grained for what we want to accomplish along Highway 59. So I feel like we need to keep it commercial mixed use. If y'all are okay with that, we've pulled that from the recommended plan amendments. So that leaves us, we've gone from 4 to 3. Are y'all okay with that reasoning?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Good.
Okay. Just because its current use is, doesn't mean it should be long-term.
Exactly. And I think what that came from was we looked at the future land use map and saw that here's an educational institutional use and it's commercial mixed use policy. There was a conflict there, so we noted it as a conflict and we just didn't do the analysis maybe that was necessary to come to this conclusion earlier. So apologize for that. But the other 3, I think, are all solid recommendations for changes to the plan. This was noticed in the newspaper. And just a little bit of background, that is a portion of the graphic from the land use plan for a pattern of development and uses along 59. You can see the landfill and Landward Drive and 59 and Pinnacle Place, which is there in the pink. So which is now Pelican Place. So this is an element of the Vision 2025 plan for sustainability. It guides public and private decisions that affect growth and development. The future land use map does, as well as the land use plan. This is, as you all know, it's the first place we go whenever we're looking at a zone change or a site plan or a subdivision. It makes sure that we're coordinating land use recommendations with infrastructure improvements. It also provides some predictability about the type and scale and intensity of uses in different areas of the city. And we've got to maintain it in order to keep everything in harmony and we're not making rash decisions about land use and intensity throughout the city. So this is an ongoing maintenance exercise that we go through every year. This is the future land use map. Typically, we don't make changes to the land use plan itself. Now, the next item on your agenda is a change to the land use plan in that it's an addendum to the land use plan. But with this, we're focused specifically on the future land use map. And again, this is a broad brush map that just shows
different colors for that indicate uses and intensities of those uses within the overall community. So the first recommended change to the future land use map is associated with the Lake PUD. This year we had the first phase of the Lake PUD that was approved at site plan, which kind of locked in that PUD. It's an all residential PUD. It's a mixture of townhouses and multifamily and cottages. And so in light of that, we're making a recommendation to change a portion of the land use. The existing land use for a portion of this 83 acres is commercial mixed use, and a portion is residential medium. Residential medium is more in keeping with the Lake PUD, especially this first phase of development that's currently under construction. The PUD is outlined there in dark blue, and it's highlighted in light blue, which is our typical PUD notation. It's that light blue color. So this is the existing future land use map. Again, the 83 acres for the Lake PUD is outlined in the dash blue outline. The red is commercial mixed use. The yellow is residential medium. Residential medium calls for a range of different residential housing types at a density of 6 to 10 units per acre. That is consistent with the Lake PUD. And this is the proposed change. So you see all of the PUD goes residential medium. That first phase is, so the red portion there, that is actually the first phase of their development, which is under construction. It's townhouses, and it is consistent with the residential medium land use policy. So we're recommending that we make that change to reflect the reality of those townhouses being constructed. You can see the commercial mixed use still extends the strip where El Toro and Gulf Shores, the Gulf Shores Cafe Diner, Gulf Shores Diner, is that still is in the red. It's still commercial mixed use out there on the frontage of 59, so there's no changes there on the 59 frontage. The second is Landward Drive. We had an annexation recently. This was just in October or November for an annexation and pre-zoning to BA, a portion of property across from the landfill. The current land use policy is residential medium. The proposal is commercial mixed use. It's about a 15-acre change. So this is the policy today. You can see well, this is the zoning today. I apologize. The red is arterial business. The yellow is R5 and R14. And everything that's not colored is unzoned in the county. So we annexed a portion and pre-zoned a portion that was unzoned in the county a couple of months ago. And this is the existing future land use map. So you can see it's all residential medium, even though a good portion of that is zoned arterial business. So the proposed change to align with the zoning and with this recent annexation and rezoning is to take the portion that fronts on Landward Drive and is across from the landfill and backs up to the unzoned portions of property in the county and change that policy from residential medium to commercial mixed use. And then this one you're probably familiar with. This was a direct recommendation from the Planning Commission that we amend the future land use map for the Douglas property rezoning. This is on County Road 6, just north of the intersection with Waterway West or Oyster Bay Road, which it is at that intersection. The current future land use designation is residential medium. The proposed is commercial mixed use. Here's the zoning, and if you'll remember, the future land use map and the land use plan itself calls for the creation of mixed use nodes of activity. And in this case, the node was placed up County Road 6, predominantly on unzoned property in the county that didn't have any commercial zoning or any commercial uses. So our recommendation was to move that node from up on County Road 6 to the intersection where we have BT3 zoning, BG zoning, and a portion of R4 zoning, and the majority of it is within the corporate limits of the city rather than being unincorporated in the county and unzoned in the county. So this is the future land use map. You can see the existing mixed-use commercial node is in red there. The policy area that we're proposing to change is outlined in blue, which is residential medium. And the proposal is to swap those out, make the intersection of Waterway West and County Road 6 the node of activity that reflects a recognition of the BT3 and BG zoning that exists in that area and the fact that it's in the city limits rather than in the county. We have a greater opportunity of creating that node of activity here. So the recommendation is to relocate that node to the intersection. So we do recommend approval of those 3 future land use map amendments, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Lee, if they had a situation where somebody wants to change something or change the zoning that we got on it, would that be possible?
Yeah, so I mean, someone could submit an application to amend this land use plan, and we could take it to again, this is a policy map. This is a guide for our recommendations to you on zoning actions and subdivisions, but it can be amended if someone wanted to amend it.
Do something different.
And also someone could request a rezoning that is not in line with this map. And, you know, we would make a recommendation accordingly, and you all would then make a recommendation to the city council.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Does this shift southward include the Shipwreck Kelly property?
It
That's
does.
okay.
It does. Which is not included today. It's north of Shipwreck Kelly. So this would capture
Captures
Shipwreck.
them and then
Yeah.
go to the south.
Yeah.
Any other questions up here from the commissioners? Your staff? Okay.
Chairman, I'll make,
Oh, excuse me. Go ahead.
I'll just say, I'll make a motion that we approve.
Well, we haven't had the hearing.
Oh.
This is a public hearing. Excuse me. I don't think we have anybody. Does anybody out there would like to make a comment on the land use plan amendment? Okay, close the public hearing. Go ahead, sir.
All right, now I'll make a motion that we approve, LUPA 2401.
A second?
All in favor, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Sir, thank you. Mr. Jones, it's you again.
Yes, sir. Thank
Gulf
you.
Shores Airport Area Master Plan.
Yes, sir. And this should come as no surprise. This is a recommendation to adopt an airport area plan. This plan is designed to identify opportunities and potential regulatory and policy adjustments that need to be made to support commercial aviation services at the airport. This has kind of been in the works for a while. As soon as we, started getting letters of intent from commercial carriers, Steve Griffin, the city administrator at the time, was very interested in making sure that we had plans in place that were looking at what impacts commercial services would have to the business and aviation park in particular. So we started this effort really a couple of years ago, once we started to get those notices of intent, letters of intent from carriers. This is a public hearing. It was publicized in the newspaper. A little bit of background. Back in the summer of 23, we hired Noel Consulting. Noel is a real estate economic development firm. They provide market analysis and economic development services for both private developers, pretty much an equal split between private developers and municipalities, and helping them make decisions that are market driven. They actually performed our citywide market study 3 or 4 years back, and they've done some updates for us. So we asked them to drill down here in the airport area. So they did a market study that really set the groundwork for the planning work that was done by Barge Design Solutions following that up. Now, just Barge Design Solutions, they are the engineer on staff for the airport. So they have, I believe it's a 5-year contract with the airport. They provide engineering related services to the airport for all of the functioning of our airport and have for many, many years. They were, the airport received a grant to complete an airport layout plan, which had, the FAA requires updates to an airport layout plan. And that is a plan that, identifies the layout and the functioning of the airport of what we call inside the fence. So everything that is owned by the city but controlled by the FAA is, has an airport layout plan associated with it. So they received funding to update the airport layout plan, which hadn't been done in several years. And we really wanted to piggyback on that effort and look outside the fence at the Business and Aviation Park and develop a plan for the area outside the fence, while they were doing the airport layout plan. So we hired Barge to do that. Since they were doing the layout plan, we wanted the right hand talking to the left. And so they had their national office, their Dothan office performs engineering services for the airport. Their Nashville office has planners, urban designers, landscape architects that do master planning like this. So we worked with them to develop this draft master plan. So they started working off of the market study. They had a lot of stakeholder meetings and did a lot of their analysis of existing conditions in late 23 and into 24. We presented a draft plan to the airport authority back in July at their board retreat, received some input from them, made some modifications to the plan. And then, of course, back at the November Planning Commission meeting, we gave a brief presentation. Chairman, you then scheduled a work session with the Planning Commission that we held December 3rd. Got some really good feedback. Chairman Reese tried to get as much of your editorial in here as we could. I hope that you'll see your fingerprint on this. We sent out a link. We got all the feedback from you guys. Had a couple of work sessions with Barge to incorporate a lot of the comments that we received. And then we had to take their InDesign and get it into Acrobat Adobe and wanted to get that out to all of you. But y'all saw, if you downloaded it today, it's a pretty big file. So you should have gotten a Dropbox link to it today. Not many substantive changes from our work session other than Grant, your markup. Appreciate all of your edits and Commissioner Reese, yours as well. You should see your fingerprints on this. So this draft should have taken into account the comments we received at the work session and then the comments that you all provided afterwards. So nothing new here. Really just want to go over the study area and the recommendations. The study area, again, Cotton Creek Drive, the new Aldott Bridge Road, the Intracoastal Waterway and 59. The zoning recommendations you'll see expand to the west side of 59 like we talked about at the work session. But really, to nutshell this, there are 4 sets of recommendations. And this is a guide, just like the future land use map that we were just talking about. This is not zoning. This is a guide that will help us make decisions and recommendations on future zoning. It also has some recommendations on work that needs to be done to our zoning ordinance, as well as other more specific detailed plans related to branding, wayfinding, transportation, those sorts of things. So there's a branding and wayfinding component. There's also a development strategy, that recommendation that needs to be developed. Now, this is an economic development thing. So Blake Phelps, our economic development coordinator, has reviewed this document, has provided some recommendations, but this will go to him and he'll need to spearhead the creation of a development strategy for this district, which he'll take on here with some of these recommendations. Also, there's some zoning ordinance amendments that are pretty specific in here that we'll either do internally in the coming months, or we'll hire a consultant to do a deeper dive into the overlay district to make some actual zoning changes, which are not recommendations. Those are are regulatory changes that are just recommended in this document. And then a transportation and transit plan is a recommendation. We are currently talking with a lot of the real estate developers, the property owners, the Embassy Suites, the Brett Robinsons, the Kim Patels, and talking with them about shuttle service that they can provide to the airport at the outset, because we don't really see a real public transit opportunity early on. Maybe as the airport grows, that's something that we can work in. But the recommendation here is to develop a detailed transportation plan to really dive into what we need for transportation to and from the airport. But right now, we are already talking with a lot of the property owners in the beach area in particular. So wayfinding plan, we did update. You'll see the gateway that we talked about in our work session on 59, the properties that the city owns and the potential of that being a park. It's colored green now, there's some language that's been added to some landscaping and signage, lower landscaping and some signage to beautify that area, draw some attention to the airport as your first kind of visual access to the airport at that location. So that's an update there. And then the recommendation to develop a strategy for gateway signage and landscaping. Again, that's something this document doesn't do, but it's something that we need to kind of do a deeper dive into. And then the big thing about this, and you're going to be seeing some applications in the near future, more than likely, where we'll be referring to this development scenario. So a development scenario, really, you develop a vision and okay, what do we want to be in the future? What does this look like? What does this feel like? And then you draw it. And then you say, okay, what kind of policy recommendations, what kind of zoning changes do we need in order to implement this plan? So this is really just a vision, one scenario of how it might build out, but it illustrates a lot of the different components of what the plan calls for in the future. So you can see the phase one, which is a short-term plan. You see the temporary terminal in there that's under construction. If you haven't been out to the airport, go check out the temporary terminal. It's really taken shape. So, I mean, the parking's going in, the building is up. You can see the temporary terminal right now. So in May, there'll be, flights going in and out of it. So that's there. We are constructing a Commerce Drive connection in the coming months as a component of the Waterway East project. So you'll see that roadway connection. That will be happening in the short term. Our hope is, in talking with some of those property owners, that we might get a hotel at that intersection, something to support the commercial air services that are going to be taking place in this district. So that's kind of low-hanging fruit, the short-term things we think we can accomplish. And then you jump over to kind of the midterm, more of a 15, 20-year horizon. And you see, that central detention pond starting to become a formal open space at the heart of this district. What the market analysts felt could be a catalytic project in that indoor entertainment facility down at Waterway East. They felt like, we really need a great indoor entertainment facility if people are at the beach and they've been in the sun too long, they want to do something inside, or it's a rainy day. There are opportunities up in this district to do that. That's that footprint is a Tiger Woods Pop Golf, I believe is what it's called, facility. So that's just one idea, whether it's a bowling alley or an arcade or some type of indoor family-oriented entertainment they feel would do really well in the park. And then you start to see this central spine road that will ultimately come down to Waterway East Boulevard, terminates on the new terminal. You see the new terminal coming in. The temporary terminal becomes a hangar or an ancillary use for the terminal, and then the broader parking lot for the new terminal to the east there. And then finally, the full district kind of builds out with the mixed use kind of central spine road, and then the more artisan industrial uses on the edges and the airport supportive uses directly across from the terminal. Some very slight parcel reconfigurations. All the properties there on the image in the left are in blue are city-owned properties. There are a couple of privately owned properties that would be impacted by the street network, and that's something that obviously we need to work on a case-by-case basis, but nothing, real out of the ordinary there. I think just establishing a connected grid with smaller blocks that are more walkable with a mixture of uses is really the goal in this district. And you see the yellow roads are the roads that would need to be reconfigured and all that. And some of the blue ones are new roads to create that more walkable grid network of streets. And then the zoning recommendations, you can see most of the uses along Cotton Creek are currently residential. The airport authority really doesn't like single family residential because there are complaints in particular because of the complaints about the loud noise. But if we do have to have residential, their recommendation is more of a multifamily, and the zoning up there really supports that. There's that one scenario that we did there that blow up as assisted living. So along Cotton Creek Drive, in addition to residential, the market study said with the FED so close by and access to the airport, access to city services, it's also a great opportunity along Cotton Creek Drive to get some assisted living, some medical related residential. So that's kind of what's called for there. You see Medical Village up in the upper left-hand corner, and we do recommend approval of its adoption. Be happy to answer any questions.
So basically, Bargain planned all this and laid it all out for us to review and approve as each thing happens. Is that basically?
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll take bits and pieces of this and build out our work plans. Like I said, Blake Phelps, the economic development coordinator, a piece of this will he'll have to integrate into his work plan for developing additional plans. But like I said, we're already starting to implement some of this in conversations with hoteliers and condo property management for transportation. We'll also look at an update to the business and aviation park overlay. But as far as the physical plan, the illustrative plan, we'll use that as a guide. Just like we do.
Basically.
Yeah, we won't say you know, Mr. Developer, you have to build this street here. We'll say, Mr. Developer, you actually own a piece of property that has a planned street coming through it. Rather than putting your building there, why don't you put your building over here? Or why don't you orient your building this way? Because we'd really like to make some streetscape improvements here, or that sort of thing. So we'll just use it as a guide rather than, it's not regulatory.
I gotta say, it's a great plan and a great document for us to have. We've got 113 days before we start having flights in and out of Gulf Shores. And to be able to look longer term and be able to look down the road at what this could become now when we have an opportunity to make these choices is incredible. And I applaud everybody for putting the hard work and effort in this whole commission, for spending extra time on it. It's exciting. It's one of the best documents I've seen in a long time, and it really hits home as to what that area could be. So great job. Thank you.
I agree. Wonderful.
I agree also. It's like exciting. I had one question on the tax slide. Let me see. I'm trying to double screen it. I didn't see it on the slides that you had pulled up. I don't think that was the full presentation. Let me tell you what page it is.
What's our next step, Lee? I mean,
Well, and I'll come back to Jennifer's question. I think. Yeah. Once you adopt this, I mean, we can take it to council for their adoption or their endorsement, which we probably will. But this is a planning document. This the planning commission's role to develop guides and non-regulatory. Now, the council is responsible for zoning and the regulatory documents that dictate what happens with property, but the planning commission develops the plan, the guidance for how we grow. So this document really stops here. Once you adopt this plan, we make it a part of our land use plan. It becomes a part of our comprehensive plan, Lorenzo. And but we'll likely take it to the council's been involved in this. They're aware of it. We'll likely take it either to council as an endorsement or as a resolution to adopt the plan as well. But in reality, this is your job to review and adopt this plan.
I concur with all the members here. It's a heck of a plan. It really is. A lot of thought went into this. So.
And the tax, if I'm remembering it correctly, the tax incentives, so the market analyst was really concentrating on, I mean, we've all driven through there today, and they were like, the best thing that you could do, and I'm just going to be blunt here, is you need to put lipstick on the pig. You know, you're obviously not getting tenants in here that are really elevating this district. So you really should focus on a program to enhance landscaping, to enhance facades, to provide some tax incentives, whether there's something called a facade improvement program. It's typically done with historic tax credits where you can get a federal grant and then the city or an individual or an organization can match the grant in order to improve property. And that's what that is. The tax incentives are really based on if we were to develop a program where we're going to go after federal grants for facade improvements, for as an example, where the city said, you know, they have a $5,000 federal tax grant or incentive for facade improvements, and we'll go after this. But Mr. Developer, you need to match that with an additional $5,000, or the city sets up a fund, or the airport authority sets up a fund to match that. That's the tax incentives that they were recommending, so that we could take a metal building out there and brick it. Or we could take a business improvement district and create a tax incentive for them, whether that's a half a penny tax that goes into a fund that is used to improve the landscaping within that district, that sort of thing.
Okay. So I think that's great. My main question is for that one, that would be like the property tax that you're talking about. Because there's the property tax, there's an employee tax, and a tourism tax that are mentioned. So you're talking about property tax for development.
I don't think we'd be looking at any ad valorem, any property taxes. I think it would be a tax, and that may be from the market analysts and they're out of Georgia. But we typically would do a self-imposed tax of all of the folks within that district, where they'd say from all of our retail sales or all of our, you know, product sales, we're going to assign half a penny off of that tax, and we're going to tax ourselves, and we're going to reinvest that money back into our district.
Tanger Outlet and other retail operations in Foley have a similar type of setup where the merchants all have an extra half cent or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that money is put back into the district to improve their landscaping, improve their sites and some facades.
So it wouldn't be an employee tax or a property tax. It would be a self-imposed tax by the business owners in that district. I think that's the most viable way to start this. And that was the recommendation that I remember from David Loby, the lead economist on this, was really, again, lipstick on the pig. Y'all need to figure out how to upgrade what is there today, because, you know, people aren't exactly beating down the doors to come in and build beautiful buildings in that district.
Lee, that technique is used throughout the United States and actually the rest of the world. It is very effective.
I agree with that. I think this doesn't, to me, say that.
Yeah.
So I might look, because right here it says property tax, employee tax, and special tourism. And so, especially when we're looking at a special tourism tax that is earmarked to fund improvement in the airport area, you know, I think that's definitely a bigger discussion
Yeah.
on earmarking the entire tours, you know,
Right.
for just for that. And then the same, I think they're great. I think talking about employee abatement taxes, I mean, tax abatement, I think they're all things to discuss, but I think they would be applicable to all the areas versus just the airport. So I would want to look at, like what you said.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think they were probably just throwing out, you know, a bunch of different options that we can investigate in a more detailed study. But I do think, you know, an overall, I'm not going to say lodging tax, but some type of tax related to tourism that was earmarked specifically for transportation improvements to and from the airport, or transportation improvements citywide. I think that is something that we could potentially do and be successful with. But I think they were just throwing all of the different options out there and saying, okay, city, you need to hire a specialist to focus on what's going to work for your community.
Yeah, and Lee, I'd like to add to that. Beautification is such an important part of our effort. And, you know, the city is changing. You know, we're becoming an international city now. And as we change, we're going to have to tax ourselves in order to get the proper investment into our community, in order to beautify our community. Because when people come to the airport, they don't expect to see an eyesore. They don't expect to see dilapidated building. They expect something of quality. And so we're going to bring that quality to them. But at the same time, we're going to be serving the people of Gulf Shores, because we are, the primary focus should be us. But at the same time, our visitors, because that's how we make our money. And so beautification is very important. Taxing ourselves in certain districts or certain locations is very important, and we're going to get there.
Thank you.
Okay. Y'all, okay, I'm gonna open up the hearing, public hearing. Anyone in the, would like to address the body regarding this issue? Mel, close the public hearing. Chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to approve application number LUPA 25-01.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Yeah. Thank you, Lee.
Sir.
I do think not only is this a great vision plan, but our opportunity to use this for new business recruitment that shows that world that we want to bring to town, that we have a vision for the airport area that we've got to study, we got to plan, and that there is a willingness and an opportunity for incentives for the partners that will help us get this plan accomplished. And that's, I think, the real opportunity is to use that for economic development, recruitment, and not just create the vision and hope that the world comes to us and does a better job. But I mean, it's been an industrial park, and without the vision of the airport and Allegiant and then the tower and all, and the new business generated, I mean, it served its purpose as an industrial park. It's put those type of warehouse buildings tucked away, but now it's going to be Main Street, and so anyway, great work. Great work there, and hopefully we'll put that to use as a
And
Economic development tool. That's a really good point. I
that's
think
where
you're exactly
opportunity
right.
is.
and the real estate companies that are renting the units here, the tourism. This is something they can really, I think, use to get people to fly in here instead of driving in here. I think this is something we've been needing for a long time. Okay, is there anybody here that would like to address this body that did not get a chance to speak today? Corbin?
Chairman, committee members, commissioners, I appreciate the opportunity. First of all, that's an incredible foresight to make that airport plan as we see it, because that can really become a real gem for our community, and I think everybody's going to support that wholeheartedly. So incredible work. Obviously, it had thousands of man hours in it to come up with that scenario, so impressive. In 2024, this commission voted to extend the beach overlay district further north up the 59 corridor to incorporate the rest of BT1 North zoning. At that same time, there was discussion about extending the beach overlay, the walking district, the walking district further north as well. I just wondered if that kept traction, where that might stand with this commission.
Are you talking about short and long-term rentals too? Or
No, I'm talking about just simply and Lee can step in here, but
Yeah, no, I mean, that had,
talk of extending the beach
yes.
walking district further north to incorporate the rest of what's now a beach overlay district. And I'm just curious if that has any momentum at this time.
I mean, it could have momentum at this time. I think with the holidays and everything else, I mean, we could certainly pick that ball back up and get it going again. But as of this point, it's hasn't been on my direct radar. No.
You've been doing something, obviously, because that's insane what you just presented. What we would like, I personally would love for that to be follow under consideration again to continue that that walking district further north. I mean, BT stands for business tourism. I mean, so if we're going to cater to tourism, and it's an easy walk from a lot of these places we're talking about, I'd love to see that considered. And also one further question, there was talk about modifying the current parking requirements to be more accommodating to businesses in that same area. Does that have any traction at this point in time? Where does that stand?
I can give an update on that. So we're in meetings, we actually have a meeting tomorrow, working on parking reform. So we're steadily moving along, hoping to come up with short-term plan, and then as well as long-term plan. So we're looking at how we can work with businesses and developers immediately that are trying to develop their properties, what we can do today, as well as looking at a long-term management plan for future planning. So, and then a part of that will include reaching out to businesses and developers like you in the next few weeks to run through, to get feedback on what we come up with.
So tomorrow's meeting is a closed session among your committee, is
Closed
that correct?
session among the committee, and then we'll be looking for feedback once we come up with a plan. If and when we come up with a plan, we're going to say yes tomorrow. We'll come up with our plan, hopefully to get feedback from developers.
No, I'd love the opportunity to provide insight for that, so thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for your input, Kevin. Communications from staff. Anything for us, guys?
I have one thing real quick, just because I don't want it to come as a surprise, but late last year, so have all of you read our budget? So there's an organizational chart in our budget, and every year City Council adopts a new budget. And in this case, our org chart changed with the 2025 budget. So, and this is something that has been talked about for a while, in that our city's growing, our staff is growing, not quite in the same step as the city, but we're getting there. We're making some real positive strides. And our city administrator has a lot of what we call direct reports, a lot of department heads and division managers that report directly to the city administrator. And the city council made the decision to adopt a new org chart with the 2025 budget that created some new departments, also created some additional opportunities for staff, and also lightened some of the load on the thought is it will lighten some of the load on the city administrator. And that is, we created a capital projects department. So y'all all know Clint Colvin, and Clint Colvin was his term, his title was construction manager for many years, until Mark Ackerman went to the county, and then he became interim city engineer and wore both construction manager hat and city engineer hat. And then last year, luckily, we got Jenny Wolfschlag filled in Mark's old position as city engineer. So now she's the full-time city engineer, which allowed Clint to step into a full-time role of capital projects department head. So he's no longer construction manager. He's no longer interim city engineer. He actually is capital program director. He oversees a new staff member, Gabe, who's a great addition, who's going to be our capital projects manager, who's kind of our boots on the ground, making sure that the PED Bridge is on time, on budget, Waterway East, the beach walking, all of our capital projects. We have a department that specifically focused on accomplishing our capital project goals. And now also the engineering department, planning and zoning. I'll be stepping up, I guess, as Director of Community Development under John Walker, the city administrator, and we're hiring a new planning and zoning director. His name's Scott Stevens. He actually moves in today, not into his office, but he's moving into town today. He starts on Monday, February 3rd. So you'll no longer have to look at me up here. You'll be looking at Scott. Scott was the planning director for the city of Prattville, just outside of Montgomery. Prior to that, he was the planning director for the city of Northport. Prior to that, he worked with the city of Tuscaloosa. He's an Alabama undergrad. His graduate degree is in urban planning from Georgia Tech. One of the things that was interesting to us about Scott was his background. His first job was with the Fulton County School District, where he did school-related planning. So he's got a degree in geography, so he understands GIS. He understands planning for schools and community growth and the needs of schools related to growth, as well as a floodplain manager. So he's got a really good, diverse skill set. He's a really nice guy. I think he's going to be a good fit for the commission as well as for our staff. So I'll be excited to welcome him next Monday.
What will your new position be?
My new position is, right now, I'm Director of Planning and Community Development. I'll be Director of Community Development, working under the city administrator. So it's an assistant city administrator position with my direct reports will be planning and zoning, capital projects, engineering, and building.
Okay,
Anything
how will-
related to our built environment, I'm going to try to take some of the load off of John and be the conduit from those department heads to him.
What about the project at the end of West Beach? That's been approved. The
Laguna Cove,
the code, yeah.
we met on that this morning. DCNR approved additional funding. It went out to bid. It came in over budget. DCNR said we want to fund it, so they provided more funding in that grant. And we're making some modifications to the plan right now, and we'll be putting that back out to bid in the coming weeks.
Thank you, sir.
Does that include any lagoon water management?
There's water access.
Access.
There's also some living shoreline components to it. So yes, yeah. If that's water management in your mind.
What about the lights over at the reroute?
The lakes,
The reroute lights,
the reroute lights. Which reroute?
the traffic.
Oh, I wish Clint were here. I'm not sure. I think we're just weeks out on that, but every week it seems to be weeks out.
Waiting for the
Yeah.
I keep getting
Baldwin
questions.
EMC has to power.
Yes,
Clint,
that's
Is
true.
it?
Baldwin EMC has to add a transformer to power the signal, and they were intending to do it, and we got a snowstorm.
So we can
So
like-
we're a couple weeks out from having power to be able to turn the signal on.
Thank you, Grant. Yes, that's exactly right.
How about the roadway out here, the lanes? Expansion of the lanes?
59? Well, they took a snow break last week for the median, but they're going to start, they should have started back this week, getting the concrete curbing in for the median.
They're out there.
Okay. So that concrete work will start and it'll go pretty quickly.
Our website does a decent job of keeping up to date on all these capital projects. There's a portion on our city's website, there's a portion that you can go and get updates on the capital projects. And Lindsay Hart, who is community engagement manager in Clint now, will be starting to give more updates on that website.
That's
So
great.
everybody's got a
That's
place to
great.
go to follow along
Wonderful.
as we have updates.
People ask us all the time what's
Yeah,
going on.
and it's an animal, as you can imagine, because
Right.
there's so many quickly moving parts that change daily, if not,
And that's Aldot's mainly, it's their,
I mean, there's, everybody's projects have different parts to them, and
Yeah.
if one thing is off kilter, then the whole
Whole
thing
thing falls,
changes. So
yeah.
it's hard to give an exact update, but at least there's some better attempt to try to track the project and the progress of the projects on the website.
Thank you, thank you.
So Lee, you're not going to be involved with us anymore, or how is that?
Yeah, I think I will be. Yes, I think I will be.
Well, I'm kind of disappointed. I got your train, now you want to take off.
How much do I owe you for the training? No, we'll see how Scott does. I think you may prefer Scott over me, but we'll see. I imagine, especially with the long range planning stuff, I still will be involved. Yeah.
Are his presentations as detailed and thorough?
I don't know. He's
Uh-oh, next meeting, we'll find out.
Mel knows
Congratulations,
that.
freshman Mel.
Yeah, good job, Lee.
thanks.
Congratulations. Yes, sir, go ahead.
So most of you know that we are, I think 2018, we were designated bronze level bicycle friendly community.
Uh-oh.
I've reapplied over the years. We've achieved bronze level again. Got good news. Actually, today we were, I was notified the other day, but today the official announcement came out. We are now a silver bicycle friendly community. First and only in the state of Alabama.
What does that mean, with with that level? What does that?
Basically, it means that we put a lot of money into, building bike lanes, but I'm gonna say pedestrian too, but bike lanes, and then and making sure the bike lanes are well maintained, bicycle education, enforcement of bicycle laws. I mean, certain things we do better than others, but I think just in general, the city, and I can't remember, we put in millions of dollars over the last 10 years into improvements in bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. To me, that's why it's paid off. The league, I mean, it's probably a 60-page, very detailed questionnaire that I generally fill out, but I do get a lot of help from the engineering department, the police department, probably some of Grant's people, because there's a lot of questions I can't answer. I got a lot of help from the school. The school now, every fifth grader rides a bike like once a week. They give them bicycle education. That to me has maybe helped us a lot, because in some of the past years, bicycle education was very little. So I think that's helped a lot, get us to silver status, as well as all the infrastructure upgrades we've made. And, you can just ride around and see how many people are bicycling in this town. It's increased tremendously over the last 5 to 10 years. So.
Especially since they don't have to pedal anymore.
Exactly. That's helped also.
Thanks, Ed. The chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
See you next time. Thanks for your efforts. Mel, do we need to update, CAPSO? No rush, but I'm just.
Yeah. In touch with North